Damn it, I was thinking that we're here before, Mo.
No, it got pushed back a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back from our lunch break. We are going to move ahead with our sheriff's items. There's a couple.
A few. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right, good afternoon. A couple quick thank yous for my staff, particularly Mary Beth Strong, my finance manager, who's here with us today. She loves to talk, so I'm going to hand her the mic pretty soon. Also, our accountants and analysts in our department, and of course admin, always a pleasure to work. I know this year we had Stephen and a lot of help from Sarah, and even though he didn't plan to be our budget analyst, appreciate him giving the time and helping us out. So I do have we have some 21 budget units, so I'm going to go through them very quickly. Feel free to stop me at any time, trying to give just a few highlights. And I'll get right into it. So our first budget unit is 1785, Public Safety Facilities. And the only real highlight I'm going to talk about there is the National Guard Armory facility falls in that, which also happens to be the only ARPA funds involvement that we have in our department. To give you a little update, we're in phase one. We've completed a facility assessment report with an architect that we hired, I think it was in last March, Dewberry Designs. We completed a needs assessment with our SO divisions. We have an upcoming meeting, I think next week or the following, again with Dewberry for conceptual plan approval. And if that goes as planned and we like that, what would follow that is a cost analysis that would have to be approved by the board before we proceed. So that is 1785.
Okay.
2201, so this is our main patrol budget. This one I'll talk a little bit about. Under state law, the sheriff coroner is responsible for the delivery of law enforcement services to the unincorporated areas of Lake County, as well as countywide adult detention services. We conduct legally mandated investigations, and we also serve as the county's Office of Emergency Services. You can read a little bit more about that. I'll go straight into some accomplishments. We have several, and again, I'm trying to go fast today, but I don't want that to seem as if I'm not proud of the department for the accomplishments we have. You have those, you'll get to read them. A lot of good ones, but frankly, I could take up your day talking about accomplishments with this many budget units, so we're going to bypass that a little bit. I do want to talk about the Roadmap Task Force. 189 investigations, 94 arrests related to the work of the Roadmap Task Force, and that's good stuff. And I bring that up because it's a proactive law enforcement tool that we unfortunately don't get to use a lot in the county because of some staffing issues, and it's kind of near and dear to me, and it shows what a benefit those kind of programs are. Any questions in 2201?
I don't have a question. There is a fix in budget unit 2201 that can't wait until final budget, and they want to add a capital asset in account 6274 for $64,591. It's for gym equipment. It is officer wellness funding that what came in in last fiscal year. So it's FBA, but it was funding specifically for this, and they need it before July 1. So add $64,591 to account 6274 in budget unit 2201, please.
Okay.
And before I move on, I actually wanted to talk about a few of the goals, because the goals are kind of important to me here, and just a few of them. Providing baseline services in all areas continues to prove challenging given the struggle to attract, hire, and retain qualified employees. Staff will continue to use available tools such as social media and community outreach, as well as monetary incentives provided by the Board of Supervisors to fill the vacant positions. We want to increase retention of qualified employees and return deputy sheriffs from augmenting staffing levels in dispatching and corrections. Supervisor Shabatier brought up a good point earlier, talking about the philosophy of maybe getting rid of some positions that you can't fill anyway in favor of using that money to improve some maybe other salaries and benefits to fill positions. And we want to do exactly that. We're working on a plan right now. I can just tell you the goal for me for a couple divisions, basically patrol, corrections, and dispatch, is to get them to the median. HR was good enough to do a salary survey, updated one for just those positions and give me an idea of where we would be. I know money doesn't solve all the problems, but I think the challenges facing law enforcement are pretty unique right now, and we have to kind of do some out-of-the-box thinking. I get it everywhere I go that the biggest concerns, I've attended a lot of town hall meetings, the Cobb Area Council and Lucerne and the math in Middletown and the Clear Lake Oaks, so, and anybody who's attended those with me, I think you'd agree, 90% of the issues are staffing issues. The people want that, if they have complaints or concerns, it's response times and proactive patrol and just visibility and all those things. So I'm looking at those 3 areas as the most important for public safety: dispatch, corrections, and deputies. So again, that's not for today, but that will be a plan that'll be coming to the board soon.
So is that going to come this summer between now and the final budget, you think?
Kind of, maybe. Does that
Hopefully.
answer your question?
Yeah.
Very specific.
A lot of it, we were looking at trying to get through preliminary budgets here to just kind of figure out where all the money's at, and then it'll be meetings with everybody, of course, admin before HR, hopefully before final budgets.
Okay. Supervisor Green?
Yeah, 3 super quick questions. So again, I'm all about cost recovery apparently this week. So charges for services, I see the budgeted amount went down a little bit. I don't know if that's all live scans all the time, but I'm just curious. That would be 66-80 on page D105 of the breakout. So I just want to make sure that we're collecting all the appropriate fees for all the services you're providing. And if we haven't done a fee study lately, maybe that would be something. I like to hear that you're all into the roadmap task force. That seems to be a good model that we'll be leaning toward extending at some point. And it's a good thing. The number went down quite a bit, but your liability insurance went down substantially. So how'd you pull that off?
We're just really, really good. No, to answer your first
Vacancy rate, I don't know.
To answer your first question, reduction in cannabis permits is the biggest reduction we had in those fees. And the other question is, that's probably luck more than, I mean, we do our business the way we do our business, and I've gotten that figure from admin every year for decades, and it changes, and sometimes we're lucky, sometimes we're not.
Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes, yeah.
Supervisor Spatier?
I'll just make my comments. I'll make my comments now, and they probably overlap some of the other ones that you're going to say. My number one most important that would help you, I think, is your dispatch. I would love to see that change so that we don't have our officers stuck in a room. We have our officers doing what they were hired to do, what they wanted to do, which is to serve our communities and be out in the field and doing what they're supposed to do. That, and of course, the issues you have in the county jail where, again, you have to bring officers inside to become correctional officers. I think those 2 things could help alleviate a whole lot more. I'm in full support of that. Appreciate what you guys do because you are good at what you do.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. We're moving on to dispatch now, and I'll talk about a little bit of those numbers. And to go back to the vacancy rate thing, we're currently, I think, 33% vacant in patrol, and that moves us into dispatch because we're struggling there, of course. I'll go over our overview a little bit here real quick, but the Lake County Sheriff's Dispatch Center serves as Lake County's public safety access point. Emergency 911 calls for fire, law, and medical services are received here. The center is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It goes into how many calls we handle, and I'd like to spend some time with that, but I really want to talk about what you're talking about. Our vacancy rate in dispatch right now is currently 40%. We have 10 allocated dispatcher and supervisor positions, and currently 5 are filled for 40% vacancy. In that mini salary survey HR did for me, they're 11.04% below the median, which is in itself a problem, but with dispatch, we have CPD, Mendocino County. We have a lot of very local competition that pay quite a bit more, and it's very difficult to staff that position. So yeah, we're looking to make an improvement there, and that would also improve patrol as well. Any other questions about central dispatch? So 2203 is sheriff marijuana suppression. We get these monies from USDA grants. And per grant requirements, money received from the DEA and DSAP, Domestic Cannabis Eradication and Suppression Program. They're prohibited from being used for licensing or license compliance services. Several accomplishments there, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Did I lose? What's that?
You've been adjusted.
Was I talking too loud? You can just tell me to quiet down. You never adjust. Okay. I'll move on from 2203 to 2204.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Go ahead.
Super. So again, you and I sat down. Yeah, it is hard to connect the dots, and I'm looking, this obviously can't be used for any compliance work, so this is all about illicit cultivation, but of course, in the Roadmap Task Force, we coordinate with code enforcement and stuff like that. And then there's so many task forces going around. I know you guys work with watershed enforcement, or what used to be called watershed enforcement. Now the state's spinning up a task force under a new name. I forget what it is. It starts with a U, like Unified Task Force. So I guess I'm just trying to connect the dots still. You know, clearly you go out and do what you're doing, and you can't spend any money on compliance work, and yet by virtue of your work, you need to interact with community development. You need to interact with other agencies, presumably including in a more meaningful way moving ahead the Department of Cannabis Control and whatever their unified task force is, which is distinct from the advisory task force they're talking about spinning up. So just real quickly, can you just connect two dots? What's your current capacity as far as working with whatever the watershed enforcement team that used to be Fish and Wildlife and stuff like that, and how is that going to connect the dots with whatever new unified task force the state is spinning up?
I'm not sure of the unified task force. Right. As far as the relationship and working with code enforcement, our roadmap task force is obviously different than our marijuana suppression task force. And they do work specifically with code enforcement for compliance issues because it's funded through, funds you guys approved. The DEA is just different. They're typical, more traditional, just marijuana eradication operations.
DEA, as in
DEA
federal?
stuff, yes, federal.
Okay. Is that camp/epic now?
Yeah, they don't call it that anymore, but that's what it used to be.
I'll take more questions offline. Thank you.
I think it's normal.
Excuse me?
I think it got changed to normal or anyways, it doesn't matter.
I don't have it here. I already said decent. Yeah. So if no other questions about 2303, 2204 is the Sheriff Court Security. The Sheriff's Office provides executive protection for the judges and court security. This function is performed with a combination of permanent full-time employees and retired annuitants, supervised by a full-time sergeant. No significant staffing or budget changes in that. 2205 is the Sheriff Marine Patrol. The Marine Patrol Division provides enforcement of California's Harbors and Navigation Code on the navigable waters of Lake County. The division is staffed by one full-time sergeant and augmented by seasonal deputy sheriffs, again, usually retired annuitants. The division also enforces the county's quagga mussel invasive species ordinance, and again, no significant changes to the budget or staffing. 2206 is the Sheriff's Rural Fund. The big item in the rural fund this year, I think Stephen has an addition with this one, but is the Armory project that is partially funded. I think $1 million is committed out of Sheriff's Rural Fund towards the Armory project, and you had one other addition.
The addition before September is the Sheriff's Office needs to increase the capital asset for mobile radios in account 6279 by $5,500 for a new total of $20,000, and to offset it, account 2830 should be lowered by $5,500 in budget unit 2206.
We'll get back to you on that.
Thank you. Excuse me, next budget unit is 2207, Sheriff Civil. Fees for this budget are collected pursuant to Government Code 26746 and 26731 and 26746.1. The Civil Division is responsible for the service of civil papers. The Civil Division processed several hundred subpoenas, notices, summons, complaints, and restraining orders, earning withholdings, orders, claims, levies, actions, and other services. And again, we're not anticipating any big budget changes or changes of staffing in that division. Sheriff Blood Alcohol, unless you have a question, I'm not really going to waste much time on a lot of these, just funds.
Can I jump backwards real quick to Marine Patrol? Is there any vehicle abatement capacity right now? Not vehicle, but vessel. Dead boats. I know there's grant funds floating around. I see dead boats. But I don't know if that's a code enforcement thing or Marine Patrol, or if you guys coordinate on that.
We haven't that I'm aware of. Water Resources might, but I don't know of
You know what?
involvement with
That might
us
be.
yet.
Thank you.
2210 is Sheriff's STC Fund. These are funds we receive back for the state to somewhat augment required training. STC is standards and trainings and corrections. This is for our correction division. Again, unless you have a question, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. 2212, Sheriff Automated Warrant System. Again, any questions? 2213 is Sheriff DNA. It's just money budgeted to collect both for the courts and probation as set forth as a result of Proposition 69. Any questions about DNA collection fund? 2214 is Sheriff Asset Forfeiture. Monies in this budget are seized from property in accordance with the equitable sharing agreements between the County of Lake, the Department of Justice, and Treasury. Monies are also received from state and local forfeitures. We don't anticipate any changes or significant budget impacts. $22.15 is the Sheriff Inmate Welfare Fund. Services provided by these funds under Penal Code Section 4025 are used primarily for the benefit, education, welfare of the inmates confined within the jail facility. This budget unit also provides funding for a Deputy Sheriff Corrections assigned to coordinate inmate programs. No changes. $22.16 is the Sheriff Pool Vehicle Fund. As the board knows, the fund allows the department to purchase replacement unmarked pool vehicles, such as for our pool vehicles and detectives unmarks.
I apologize again if I can backtrack very quickly to asset forfeiture. There's $500,000 in there.
I don't see.
What's in there?
On page D130, appropriation 28-30, supplies and services, 508,458, from a previous actual of 13K. So that's not incoming revenue. So is that capital? No, it would be supplies and services. So what's the $500,000 for?
Narcotics Task Force, the remodeling of the Narcotics Task Force. We've had to do a lot of work, like with cutting trees and stuff down over at the
Microphone.
I don't want to talk. It's money basically that just sits in an account until we need it. We use our, the funding for the Narcotics Task Force when we have to do projects over there, like all the eucalyptus trees that we had to cut down. That money came out of that account. We also use it for our canines, our canine schools, and that type of thing.
All right, thank you.
2217, Sheriff Pursuit Vehicles, just like the other vehicles. This fund purchases vehicles and equipment to replace existing fleet of emergency vehicles and response vehicles. Any questions? Budget Unit 2218 is Sheriff Search and Rescue. This budget functions strictly on donations. Its main beneficiary was a donation from the Grace Muzakis Thompson Trust. Under the terms of the trust, 25% of the monies were designated to be made available to the Lake County Search and Rescue with the sheriff as the beneficiary. And in capital assets, you'll see that one of the items purchased was a quad for the search and rescue team. That came out of this fund. Other than that, no changes. $2220, Sheriff Post. Post, much like STC, is the state reimbursing us for a portion of the training that's mandated by the state. Every public safety dispatcher has to receive 24 hours of training every 2 years. Every post peace officer the same. Question? I'm going too fast for you, too.
Yeah, I know.
2221 is just a fund for the local law JAG grant. Any questions? Okay, 2301 is the Sheriff Jail Facilities. This is one I do want to talk about a little bit. Staffing at the facility is made up of a captain, a correctional lieutenant, correctional sergeants, correctional deputies, correctional aides, staff services analysts, law enforcement records technicians, and maintenance workers. You will see in our position allocation a requested change in this. We would like to essentially unfund 2 deputy corrections officers in favor of 1 lieutenant position. In my experience, they're both from to operate properly and to look towards the future. 2 lieutenants is the ideal chain of command out there. When I was a jail commander, that was the system set up then, and I believe it's most effective. You have a lieutenant that's in charge of operations, transportation, most of those things, but the jail is a very large, complex facility to run. You have maintenance, medical, food services, and so we're looking for a lieutenant position. Again, that would put us back to what I think the Sheriff's Department has traditionally been for more often than not. Any questions about that?
Have you been able to hire any women?
Yes.
Okay.
We were for a while there, as you know, we were borrowing probation officers, and we have had a little bit of success there. We've actually hired 5.
Nice.
We have had some success in hiring. You know, I gave you the vacancy rate in patrol. That's it's a little worse than that actually, because 3 of those are trainees. We did have some luck and some success with our trainee program, but unfortunately for those men and women, we have to send them to the academy. They get out, they go through training, so we won't see a benefit of that for probably close to a year. And same with jail. We have 5 correctional officers starting, and we certainly hope they all make it. We'd have a kind of a vicious cycle. As we hire, we lose. In patrol right now, although we had a little success hiring, we're down to 14 people signing up for a shift. That's pretty low. That's what most people recognize as the deputies out there, our patrol men and women. It's been as high as 30 and as low as 10. In my time here and talking to past commanders, no one ever has known it to be below 10. And unfortunately, we're 14 right now with 5 in background at other departments. So we could be in a little bit of trouble there. I'm sorry I got a little far off the field, but we have had some success hiring some correctional officers.
$20,000 helps.
Yeah.
It sure does.
When was the tower finished?
It's been about 3 months ago, tower and control.
Are you doing tours?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, I'd
Yeah.
like to come see it.
I think Supervisor Green wanted to take a tour as well. We'll do that. So the jail is rated to house 297 inmates. Just for information, right now we're currently at 225. And again, a lot of accomplishments, a lot of stuff, but I'll pass it for save a little time.
Just a quick comment, not a question. We brought up the Medicaid inmate exception policy a while back and submitted a letter of support to make that change. Approximately 70% up and down, give or take, on the day of your population in the jail are pretrial.
Pre-sentence, yeah.
And I was told during one of my visits to Arizona that there is a bill that is starting to be drafted and passed around. I'm having Congressman Thompson's office try to track that bill down. If it can help save some money, I know it's not
Yeah.
direct to this specific budget, but it would help in reducing some funding that is
course.
used for jail medical, and maybe we can redirect some of those
Yeah,
funds
and
to
that's a
other things.
contract that continues to go up, so that'd be helpful.
Absolutely.
Can I make one clarifying comment?
Sure.
Where the sheriff said that there were 2 Deputy Sheriff 1-2 corrections unfunded to pay for this new lieutenant, it was actually 2 removed and lieutenant added.
Sorry, yes.
Well, they're slightly different, so.
Yeah, no, I noticed that.
Our final budget unit, 2704, is Office of Emergency Services. The Lake County Sheriff's Office of Emergency Services is the lead agency for local emergency management of the County of Lake as defined by the Lake County Board of Supervisors in Chapter 6, Article 1 of the Lake County Code. Emergency management is necessary to coordinate resources, maintain government operations, and respond to the needs of Lake County when an emergency becomes a disaster. Of course, here in Lake County, we use our OES and our EOC quite a bit, and we're hoping not to as much, but not anticipating a bunch of changes there. Done a wonderful job, a lot of outreach going on, and we'll continue that towards fire season. Anybody have any questions about OES?
Did you have a question, Supervisor Green?
Not the OES, when you're done with all the units, though, I was going to ask about care court and where that might fit in. Thank you.
If you want to finish up, that is my final budget unit. So care court, like I know there was some discussion earlier about care court and CalAIM, I think. Going to be a big effect to a lot of county departments. Not so much the sheriff's department. It'll affect us in a lot of ways, but I think it's going to be a big hit to behavioral health, public health, DSS. For us, as mentioned from behavioral health, those discussions are just starting to take place to see where everybody fits in. And a lot of it depends on how the judges interpret it and what they want to do. You know, what they consider, if they consider sentencing people and technically forcing treatment, then there'll be a lot of questions. You know, who provides it? We try to provide treatment now in coordination with behavioral health and DSS, and it's already difficult because of staffing, so it's just going to make it more difficult. It is a state program that is going to be completely reliant on county resources to make it happen.
Yeah, how can you predict? So the meetings have to happen, but then for budget purposes, I can just think there's probably some unanticipated expenses in there. And, you know, when we pick up a 5150 in transport, are we going to different places? Do we have to assign officers in a different way?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We don't really know what is going to be assigned of us. We've had a little bit of this kind of happen with a judge ordering some quasi placements, but they've really left us out a little bit. They've requested we do some transportation, but not sit with the person. If it comes to that, then that changes a lot of dynamics. So it's got a potential to have a big impact, which I don't really know what it's going to be yet.
Okay, do we have any public input on any of these public safety items? Anyone in Zoom?
I'm not
No?
on it.
Okay.
No, I'm not on it, sorry.
Oh.
I thought I was, but
Kim, are you in Zoom?
Yes, I am.
Can you see if we have any hands up? I do not. Okay, so then I will bring it back for action.
And before I read it out, really appreciate the numbers coming out of the Roadmap Task Force. I think all of those numbers are really useful in understanding how do we move forward, how we expand, and where we go next. So really appreciate the partnership that you've created with code enforcement and others to make those things happen.
Thank you.
And with that, I move to approve budget units 1785, 2201, 2202, all the way down to 2208, 2210, 2212 through 2218, 2220, 2221, 2301, 2704, and I also would like to amend the appropriate budget units as stated by Mr. Carter earlier.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry, I had to check to make sure that that was appropriate. It's so
Thank
much
you,
easier
Sheriff.
that way.
Thank you.
Next, we have Public Works.
You can get away with just unfunding those positions.
It's a good try.
I'll take that. Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Scott DeLeon. I'm the Public Works and Water Resources Director. I'm joined today by Alicia Ayala, who is the Deputy Director of Public Works in charge of administration, and Marina Delagianis, who is the Deputy Director of Water Resources. We're excited to bring our presentation to you today. I'll attempt to be brief and hit some of the highlights, and I'm not going to talk about all 18 primary budgets that we are responsible for or the 34 secondary budget units that we're responsible for, but I do want to hit some of the highlights. And before I get started, I just wanted to make just a very brief comment about vacancies, and there was a bit of discussion about that this morning, and Supervisor Green kind of hit the nail on the head. As department heads, it's been historically very difficult to get position allocations, new ones. And so whenever you have one, you don't want to get rid of it. And so in a number of budgets, and two of the budgets that were on the screen that were shown were Budget Unit 1903, DPW Admin, and 1908, Engineering and Inspection. And it showed, 50% or close to 50% vacancy. In DPW admin, for example, we have 13 total positions. 3 of those are unfunded. So really we only have 10, but those 13 are included in the calculation for your vacancy rate. We have 2 vacancies in that position, and while that might not seem like a big deal, our vacancy rate goes from 20% to 38, almost 40%. When you add in those other positions that are unfunded. It's the same with engineering and inspection. We have 12 total positions, position allocations in the budget unit. 9 of them are funded. And we actually only have 3 vacancies in that division. So again, as a department head, you don't want to give up that position allocation. And so, you were talking about, Supervisor Sabatier, you were talking about looking to the future, and perhaps if position allocations aren't as difficult to get in the future, then we might be willing to let go of them if they're unfunded. Or let go of them as opposed to unfunding them and having them included in the calculation. Just a little wrinkle to the whole discussion, because I did hear what you said about perhaps taking some of that funding that's set aside for those positions that you're never going to fill and do something with that. And I think that's an excellent idea. This just creates a bit of a wrinkle for it.
If I may respond to that,
Please.
I think unfunded is just as good as what we were talking about earlier, because you can have a board today that's easy to put positions back in when there's a request and there's a good reason to say yes, but then you may have a board within the next 2 years or 4 years that may not have that same behavior or mindset. But to me, unfunded allows that money to be freed up, and it gives me the same outcome than what you've been doing with these unfunded positions that you have.
Great. So with that, let's jump into some of our budget units. I'm going to start with 1908, and I'm going to focus a little bit on that. Engineering and inspection, that's the unit that's responsible for all the engineering and inspection tasks within the department. The majority of the work that we do, or the engineering work that we have done, is through consultants. So our staff oversees a lot of contracts and administers a lot of contracts and coordinates with Caltrans and others on reimbursements and expenditures. I bring this item up, or this particular budget unit up, because I wanted to focus on the general fund contribution, and just make a note that the county general fund contributes. This year we have budgeted $259,000 for county surveyor costs. Other than that, all the other positions in the division they generate their own revenue, but we do get a general fund contribution for the county surveyor. And I'll just kind of jump through these, and please stop me if you have questions. Budget Unit 3011 is the road department. We have 34 full-time positions, and I wrote down here 1 or 2 vacancies. We had an interview today, and so depending on the outcome of today's interview, we may only have 1 vacancy after today. There are HEO, heavy equipment operator positions that are open. I do have to put a bit of an asterisk next to our vacancies, in that a number of the heavy equipment operator positions we've underfilled with maintenance workers. It's extremely difficult to recruit folks that have Class A driver's licenses and equipment operation experience. And so what we're doing is we're underfilling these positions with maintenance workers and then training them, and with the hopes that we can kind of groom these folks into future heavy equipment operators. So again, a bit of an asterisk on our vacancy rate.
So they've been promoted from entry-level positions, basically?
Yes.
Cool. That's
Yep.
pretty cool.
The road department's responsible for 613 centerline miles of public roads, 125 bridges, and thousands of culverts. If you look at all of our budgets, that is the largest individual budget unit in the department. However, the majority of the funding and the appropriations are specific projects, specific funding. They're non-discretionary funds, so they're for specific projects and programs. Last year, using some one-time funding provided by your board, we completed approximately 15 miles of asphalt overlay and chip seal on roads that were impacted by the sulfur fire and others in that region. We also utilized some federal funding to purchase a new chip cart for our chip seal program, and one of our goals for this summer is to complete about 20 miles of road rehabilitation here in the Lakeport area, and the guys are working diligently on that right now. So excited to use the new cart, and looking forward to getting some roads completed at this end of the lake. And then once again, and we've had a number of conversations about this, one of the primary goals for the budget unit is the implementation of our pavement rehabilitation plan, and we are planning on delivering a large rehab project for next summer. So look for me coming to the board very soon with a consultant to do the plans and specs, and then we'll get that project out to bid for construction next year.
I have a question. And the right-of-way clearing, the vegetation right-of-way clearing, is that in this budget unit? Or is
Yes.
that okay, and so how is that done? Just staff hours, because we purchased that equipment?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
And on pavement rehabilitation, the plan we just approved was a chunky monkey, and I believe identified projects well in excess of revenues. So how is that addressed in this budget then? What level of funding for the pavement rehabilitation plan is actually projected with this budget versus, I forget what the plan was, but I think we kind of doubled it to more than 10 million or something like that. So
Right.
what level of actual rehabilitation is in this year's budget?
So we're anticipating somewhere in the 10 to 12 million dollar range for the project that will start next summer. It'll begin in this coming up fiscal year.
And we identified revenues?
Well, we have existing revenues from savings of SB1 and SB1 revenues over the last several years. We've been putting that in reserves, and we'll be using that as the revenue for year one.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, just two questions. One, I'm sorry to bring it up. Love the double chip seal you did in the sulfur fire area. So unfortunate that we lost another piece of Sulphur Bank Road during the heavy rains. Is there any plan in the near future to, just because to me that's always, and you and I have had this discussion before, it was repaired, which was greatly appreciated, but it's one of those, if there's a fire in the area, that's one of the main evacuation routes, and I just want to make sure there's the egress and the ingress. Just kind of curious if it's on the radar for a certain time frame for getting resolved, or if it's kind of stuck within the 10-year plan somewhere.
No, it's not stuck within the 10-year plan, and if we can get that repair done this summer, and it'll be towards the end of the construction season, that's our hope to do that.
It was looking great up until that point. That was too bad. And then my second one is with the contractor that you're working with to prepare for all of these projects that will be coming through for the 10-year plan, are they able to help us get grants for those projects as well, whether that's through HUD, CDBG, or some other form of grant funding?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I know they're a pain in the butt, and if we could have someone else do it for us, that'd be awesome.
Right. Now, they have the company I'm going to be bringing you as experience with that, so yes.
I just have a quick question. Was that road slip out as a result of the storms that were under the declaration?
Yes.
And so is that,
And it has been written up through the ER program.
okay,
Yep. As a storm damage repair site.
okay, thanks.
And just for public's information, Elk Mountain will be looked at through a different funding source?
No, it's through the same.
It's through the same? Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to Budget Unit 3122, Lamson Airport. This budget unit is basically the operation of Lamson. Last year, we separated the airport operations coordinator from the right-of-way agent and created an extra help position. Unfortunately, we have not been able to recruit that position yet. However, I understand I have an application in by a qualified individual, so we're, fingers crossed, we're going to be bringing someone who has a lot of experience actually doing that work back on board here shortly. I bring this budget unit up because, again, it's a general fund contribution of $66,741 has been requested as part of our budget. Budget Unit 3123, which is the Lamson Airport capital projects. We continue to work on our capital improvement projects with our consultant. They will be doing the design work of the taxiway and, the parking area rehab, which should get constructed not next year, but the following year due to funding. They also are working on the development of a hangar facility on the south side of the taxiway, which your board provided some one-time funding for last year, which we greatly appreciate. There is a general fund contribution in this budget unit to complete that hangar project design work. It's $35,324. So appreciate very much admin's continued support of the airport. 9911 ISF Central Garage. You might ask, well, why are we going to talk about Central Garage? And for the first time in as long as I've been the Public Works Director, I'm proud to announce that we have 0 vacancies in that budget unit. This, again, first time since 2011 that we haven't had any vacancies. So very excited. We've got a great crew down there. They're doing wonderful work. They have 132 vehicles in the fleet, and between the passenger vehicles and the trucks, and they have to know how to repair new, old, heavy equipment, trailers. They are truly incredibly talented folks down there, and I have to thank your board for your continued support of our request to bring their salaries into something that was commensurate with the skill level and the requirement for that job. And I think that your support of those raises and their salary increases is certainly a major contributing factor to 0 vacancies in that department, because we really struggled recruiting qualified applicants, and the changes that have been made to the salary have greatly changed that. So thank you.
Just a quick question
Yeah.
on that. I know the heavy machine operator was kind of the last one to really try to get you the attraction you needed in order to fill in that position, so I'm glad that was finally accomplished. Huge applause for that. I'm going to say something general that I'm not quite sure where it fits within the whole fleet thing. So in our capital assets list, I think I counted like 22 vehicles that we're buying, and none of them are either hybrid or electric. And I don't know who to ask or when to bring it up, but I'll bring it up now. I really would like to see what's our plan? Because by 2035, the state has already basically told us what our plan is, but what's our transition plan to reach 2035? We have to be better prepared. It doesn't mean we can't have those vehicles, but we need to be prepared with the infrastructure and to purchase new vehicles. And I don't know if that's you, if that's admin, if that's public services, or a mix, but I thought I'd bring it up during the fleet conversation to say I would really like to see a plan, or maybe even Terry Logsdon with the climate change resiliency. It's all kind of mixed in together, but I would love to see that plan at least be started this year. It may not get completed, but it would be really nice to know as we continue to pursue new vehicles that we have a plan on what it is that we're supposed to get and who's eligible, who's not.
We have one plan for one, right?
Right. So you stole a bit of my thunder here, but that's all right. That's fine.
Tends to do that.
Because I was going to talk about, at the end, I was going to talk about fixed asset purchases. We have 8 vehicles that we plan to purchase through the central garage. I'm guessing you've added up the vehicles from all the other departments. And so while I can't speak to those, I can tell you that we have a big interest in central garage to look towards hybrid and electric vehicles. I've challenged Chris Hamill, the superintendent down at ISF, to start working on that and start electrifying our fleet. I know Lars has got a project he plans to do to bring solar and a charging station to the back parking lot, and we'd like to take advantage of that and put a pool vehicle out there. Infrastructure's always been the challenge. And so we're going to kind of piggyback on what Lars is doing. I also listened to Doug Gearhart's presentation this morning, and he talked about that they have grant funds available for such things. So we will be moving in that direction.
Sorry to steal it.
Oh, no, no problem.
I was teasing.
They used tape a lot when I was a kid.
And I wrote electric vehicle next to my comments here, just to show you that I had planned on talking about it. I think that's going to about cover it for Public Works, unless you had any specific questions related to the Public Works side of the counter. I'm going to move to Water Resources next, and unless anyone has any questions.
Well, we just talked about briefly about the tree mortality project, and it is going to come back in a couple weeks here. But there's nothing in the budget because this is all going to be contracted out. And so I just was hoping you could share a little bit of that we've been working on with the rest of the board so they're aware.
Okay. Well, I've been kind of quietly in the background managing things, and your board's going to see a contract with Clerk, I believe on the 27th, for the tree removal portion of the Soda Bay corridor grant that's in place. We also brought to your board the contract with Headway Transportation, and they're actively, and I believe I heard you talk about that earlier today too, about the meetings that are occurring for the development of the evacuation plan. And I've also been a little bit involved with the project with MGE and the application to Cal OES for that. I'm ready and available to assist with that in any way that I'm needed.
Okay, I just wanted to see if there had any questions, because you and I have been talking about it for over a year, so. Okay, there's nothing new in the budget, but there are grants, there are applications, there's a lot of other things moving forward. Okay,
Okay, so I'll move on
Just
to.
real quick.
yeah.
Sorry, with roads, we talked about the 10-year plan briefly, or recently too. But I remember you explaining each year we had to come up with a specific amount to fund the road projects. And I just for the public's purpose, I wanted to make sure we talked about how that was anticipated to be funded each year. Yeah.
Well, we're going to, like I mentioned, you know, the department, and thanks to Alicia, has been salting away some funds over the years, anticipating a big project, and we're going to deliver that first big project and hopefully show the community what can be done, the types of projects, the type of work, and the scope of work that can get done with appropriate funding. We will continue to have some level of funding through Public Works, through our gas tax and other funding sources. And if grants become available for this type of work, we'll continue to try to pursue that. But there are a number of other options and things that we'll need to bring to your board to make some tough decisions on, frankly, sales tax measures, and other types of funding options that bonds and other types of things. And so I guess the answer, I'll just be a little more direct.
Yeah.
We don't have a confirmed funding source for the following years.
Right.
We just don't. We can make it scalable. We can only put out to bid what we have in available funding. We can certainly do that. Won't get the job done in 10 years. It'll take a lot longer, unfortunately, without any additional revenue streams. So
Thank
hope
you.
that answered the question.
You did. I really needed that to be said, because in one of my recent meetings with the town hall, there's an assumption that there is a funding source for it and that their taxes are somewhere stored away that we can just do this work. And I wanted that to be explained, that it's not necessarily, I mean, I wish it was that way. I think Stephen wishes it was too, but it's, you know, and you, of course, but I just wanted to see if we can get that out there. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll jump into Water Resources, Budget Unit 8105. I wanted to start with that one.
Should we just approve all the public works ones?
We can wait.
It's up to Lloyd, or, I mean, you, sorry.
They're all
Okay.
part of the same
Okay.
overall department.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
And before you get started, there's so much expectations on Public Works, and I just want to make sure and highlight the gratitude for winter storms, all the rain that we received. That stops work. And I definitely, and I apologize for bringing it up, but your staff, the fact that you have almost 100% filled capacity in your road crew, when your road crew had to deal with some really emotional times this year. And to show that shares the camaraderie that they have, the strength and resiliency that they have to continue to do what they've been doing without trying to walk away so that they don't have to remember. So I want to highlight that, not just for you and the team here, but for your entire staff, that it's appreciated that they're still out there serving their communities.
I appreciate that. We have, and I'll just, one last point on that. I apologize, and Lori's going to be upset with me because she told me the number, and maybe you heard her. It's a large percentage of our staff, over half, I'll just go with over half of our road crew have less than 1 year experience.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, so a third of our folks have less than 1 year experience. So not only are we challenged with recovering from the winter and the enormous amount of rainfall and the damage that was done to the roads as a result, we're also training a lot of folks and teaching a lot of folks how to do stuff. So it's a challenge, but they're up for it. They're doing good work.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. I appreciate the comment. I really do. All right, so Water Resources Budget Unit 8105, I bring that up because this is the budget unit that covers the Big Valley area, and it was brought up this morning in Stephen's presentation about a $5 million expenditure, and be perfectly honest with you, that kind of caught my attention, and I thought, what? I don't recall that, but anyway, went and checked on it, and basically that was a placeholder for a state grant that we had applied for through our Big Valley Groundwater Basin. Since we submitted the budget, we've learned that unfortunately we were not selected for that grant, and it's going to create some issues because we have a Big Valley groundwater sustainability plan that requires implementation, but we don't have the funding for the implementation. That was what one of the grant was, one of the purposes of that grant. So we're going to need to be working with the state and with admin and of course your board sitting as the board of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency to figure out how we're going to fund the implementation of the plan. So I don't have any really more detail than that. I don't know if Marina has anything else she'd like to add, but we were unsuccessful at that grant, but we will continue to work with the state and others to try to figure out how to make that happen. Okay? There is a general fund contribution in this budget unit for $25,000 for flow monitoring equipment that we requested. Budget unit 8107 is
Do you have a
the.
question?
Yes.
Sorry, just had a question. I know that we just got approved by the state. Was that us that received it, or was it Big Valley that received it for the $500,000 for the stream gauge? I know we either wrote a letter of support or it was us that did the grant. I just wasn't quite certain because it said Lake County received it.
Yeah, so that is in reference to the governor's announcement on June 8th, I believe, the $500,000 that was allocated for groundwater and surface water monitoring as focused on efforts of the Clear Lake Hitch. I'm working with a few folks to identify where that money is being funneled to. I had friends from DWR, the California Department of Water Resources, inquire to see if that came to us. I'm unaware of that money coming through our department. We've also reached out to our friends at Big Valley to see where that money has landed, so stay tuned, but to our knowledge, that is not coming through our department.
It almost sounds like we don't know where it's going.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So budget unit 8107 is water resources. This one's a little unique. There are 10 full-time positions in this budget unit. However, at your board's request, we presented two budgets for this budget unit, one status quo and the other with two positions, two additional position allocations to work on hitch-related projects and programs. In order to have those two additional positions, we requested a general fund contribution of $200,000 for the positions and associated services and supplies, and that has been reflected in the budget. So there are now 12. Have 12 full-time positions with a general fund contribution. We have 3 vacancies in the department. If this budget is approved as presented, we will have 2 positions that we'll need to recruit, and then we have 1 vacancy currently. So just say thank you for that if that gets approved, and happy to answer any questions.
And you said it's general fund.
Stephen?
Yeah, the request is for general fund, so if it is approved, it would come straight out of general fund for 1 program coordinator and water resources technician. And then associated expenses up to $200,000. That's what's in the budget for you.
Okay. If you don't think that there's a problem with it coming from general fund, there's other potential pockets of funds. That's why I was kind of, that's what I was thinking through. I know cannabis, again, has that bucket of 30% that we just said had more than 400,000.
The issue is this is an ongoing expense because it's
Right.
positions, so that's not something you want to generally take out of a one-time type funding source.
Right. Okay.
So preference, not really, but ongoing.
And if you had more vacancies, I'd have more issues with adding more, but you're already 9 out of 10 at this moment in time, so it's what the board was looking for, and if we can make it, let's make it happen, especially if we have potentially some funding, whether our partners or us coming through to help us out with that, and I'm sure that we've gotten enough attention that more funding will be made available, so.
Okay?
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, and I just want to thank the board for their support and their consideration of that. If there was anything I would want to enhance, just some understanding of workflow, my limited exposure to the very hard work that's done by this department. You have so many balls in the air, and if it's all grants all the time, grant management, compliance, writing reports, and I know you do share staff with Public Works, so I applaud you for the Band-Aids you have put together so far. I don't want to disrupt any internal workflow. I anticipate that if these positions are funded, you will find plenty of work for them. Going back, though, to the budget unit for Kelseyville, and again, I'm haunted by about 50 years of funding battles for water projects around this county, just because I was stupid enough to go research some of this. It can't be all assessments all the time. If one lesson we learned from 50 years ago, it's like people kind of have an expectation of services. And although in the old days when water projects were all tied to development of irrigation water and the benefit was easier.
Are you talking about special districts versus water resources? Because you mentioned Kelseyville and I'm lost.
Big Valley?
Big Valley.
The GSP?
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
Is that what you're referring to in Kelseyville?
Yeah, but I think it was a different budget unit, wasn't it? I'm sorry.
It's 8105?
Yeah.
The flood zone 5?
The 5 million?
That's the GSP?
Yes.
Okay, but that's different from the flood, well, no, it's tied to the flood benefit zone, right? Or is it not?
It's flood zone number 5.
Sigma.
I will withdraw my question because we're all looking confused, including myself. I will back away.
Okay, well, I think adding those 2 positions backs up everything that we've set in motion and is a response to our commitment. So thank you for adding those.
Okay. 8109 is the Watershed Protection District. This budget unit has our top priority projects, the Quagga Mussel Prevention Program, Middle Creek Restoration, stormwater and water quality programs, the National Flood Insurance Program, and the Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability. Some of the highlights, again, we were successful obtaining state and federal grant funds to continue our Quagga Mussel Prevention Program and expand that. I kind of chuckle when I think about when I became the Water Resources Director in 2010, we handed out stickers for free and there was no monitoring, there was very little outreach, there was very little boater education, and to look at where we're at today is frankly remarkable, and it's largely due to the efforts of staff and going after funds. You know, I own a couple watercraft. I don't like paying for stickers, and I certainly don't like paying for the state sticker, which I think is a money grab. But by the same token, my department benefits greatly from those state programs, and so happy to send that check in. I hope they don't double it, but anyway, we're doing wonderful things with that program. Let's see, we continue to purchase properties for the Middle Creek project. We made some progress this last year. I hope to see that improve next year. It's been a challenge for us, and we're really trying to get some things put into place to help us be more efficient with that. We have a new grant manager that appears to be very enthusiastic. And so while we're excited about that, he's also learning, so we're having some growing pains there, but I think it is working out well, and I think it will work out well.
Just to clarify, that's a grant manager through California Department of Water Resources. I got really excited for a second. I was like, we have a new grant manager with our department? That's through DWR, who oversees the grant for the Middle Creek project.
My comment was clarified. Yes, state DWR grant manager.
The work is still there, though, and it's getting done.
Yes.
Yes.
We successfully did the flood insurance community rating system recertification, and we completed several lake bed structure abatements with a variety of grant funds, and so we appreciate that. Yes, I appreciate your recognition of a lot of projects, a lot of balls in the air. We're doing a lot of things up there on the third floor.
Is there vessel abatement money available?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I got a dead boat calling your name. No.
So we have some general fund contributions for budget unit 8109. I'll go through those quickly. General fund contribution for flow monitoring equipment of $25,000, and then we have transfers from budget unit 1072 for lake bed structure abatement of $100,000, match for Blue Ribbon Committee grants of $100,000, and match for the Army Corps design of Middle Creek of $800,000. So that's coming through our budget unit. So we appreciate that very much. Any questions about water resources? Okay.
So the, is it budget unit 1672 that has the lake bed leases?
Yes.
Is that,
Yes, so 1673, is it?
oh, is it 1673?
Right.
73
So
has the revenue?
73 is the revenue. And the revenue from that is generated by the payment of leases for docks and piers and their encroachments into the lake. And while we made some inroads to getting folks to pay, we still have some outstanding and very large balances due.
Can I add something to that? And we have made recent efforts and we are in recent communications with the State Lands Commission. We are the ones to collect these funds by means of State Lands Commission, and they are helping us with some of these outreach and engagement and coordinating and contact some of these delinquent accounts, as we call them, with the substantial fees. We're looking at accounts with over $5,000. Those are our priority accounts, and we have some well over $5,000 with delinquent fees, and then working our way down to some of these low, still fees that we are waiting on collection of, but not as high as $5,000.
So how much total outstanding do we have?
I don't have the answer to that. But we can get it for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not
And
reflected.
that's a difficult question to answer because for some of these accounts, they haven't paid over a number of years. So it's been a compounding, amount.
I can say confidently over 100,000 with that, but as Director De Leon said, we do have some accounts that have been delinquent for well over, 3 to 4 years.
Okay, and so if they were paying regularly, they would be in 2160, and right now we're seeing just $25,000. Or would they be somewhere else?
Yeah, that makes
Oh,
more sense.
the 79? Okay, so it's the other ones. Okay.
And speaking of bouncing balls, so as we want to signal consistently, the county itself and the flood protection district itself are taking a series of voluntary actions to really support this response. This is not time or place to break that out on a hitch thing, but just to make sure we're not losing sight of all the balls. For example, we recently pitched you a request to develop a work program for Scotts Valley. Adobe Creek Conjunctive Use project is still bouncing around somewhere in here. Are you doing time tracking within your department just so you can keep a handle on this is Hitch and this is some of our other more established programs? And would we be able to get a report on that somewhere down the road?
Absolutely. So we have been, especially the past few months, 6 months or so, we've been diligently tracking. We have a specific code in our time management system, CAMS, of hitch-related, and our staff members do go in there and provide specific comments on the work that they're doing, whether it be field-related, participating in meetings, project planning. We do track that time so we can easily get that information to you all.
I appreciate that. So if only because we get the occasional press release, oh, fishing wildlife dumped $1 million here and other stuff coming in from other things. So we would like to signal that good news that we're part of the solution.
Okay? Any other questions?
Yeah, I can't find the flood control project, not the restoration project. This is in here, right? The one we're dealing with in
Feasibility?
the feasibility, yeah, all of that, yeah. Yeah, it's, I just didn't see it in here. I must have just missed it, but, yeah. Trying to figure.
Usually it's in 8109 that you find the Middle Creek stuff. At least that's where their land acquisition
You were asking
is.
about the study
Yeah,
for the Upper Lake?
for that area. I know it's flood area
It's going to be
8.
8108.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking about like
Yeah.
Clover?
They're often confused, and so that's, yeah, people, yeah, there it is.
It's in 8108.
It was right there. Okay, thanks. Yeah, no, everything's listed there, so I just wanted to, yeah, I don't need to ask it now because it's all listed there. Thank you.
So just to recap for a minute, Vice Chair Simon came in, we have some general fund requests, including the 2 positions, and would you mind recapping that for him?
Sure. Just for 8109, or would you like to hear all of the general fund?
All the general fund, just so he's aware.
Okay.
He knows what he's voting on.
Okay. So we'll go back to, I'll just go through the budget units that have that. 1908 is engineering and inspection, and we have a general fund contribution of $259,000 for the county surveyor costs. In Budget Unit 3122, which is Lamson Airport, there's a general fund contribution of $66,741. In Budget Unit 3123, which is Lamson Airport Capital Projects. And let me back up, 3122 is just the operation of the airport. 3123 is capital projects. There's a general fund contribution of $35,324 for the hangar project. In Budget Unit 8105, which is the flood zone for the Big Valley area, there's a general fund contribution of $25,000 for flow monitoring equipment. And in Budget Unit 8107, which is the budget unit in water resources where all of the personnel costs are held, there are 2 new positions to provide work on hitch-related projects and programs. It's a water resources program coordinator position and a water resources technician and services and supplies to support those for a general fund contribution of $200,000 for those 2 positions. 8109 is the one we're discussing right now, and there is a general fund contribution for flow monitoring equipment of $25,000, and then transfers from Budget Unit 1072 for lake bed structure abatement of $100,000, match for the Blue Ribbon Committee grants of $100,000, and match for the Corps of Engineers design of Middle Creek of $800,000. Those are all going through Budget Unit 8109.
Thank you very much.
I did remember one of the things I wanted to mention on that, but I just wanted to note that on 8108, there is an item on 66-40, the revenue, the amount that's collected each year from the flood, from the assessment and tax. I just wanted to, I know that we've brought that up before in the meetings with the public, but I just wanted to make sure that in this, if anyone's following along in Zoom or online, that they see that that's the amount of taxes that are collected each year for this. And I know that when looking at some of the goals each year ongoing, a lot of the gravel repairs and things of that nature, I think it's been said before that that basically covers that.
And I appreciate you bringing that and bringing attention to that. And I think more or equally important is the next line below that is the contribution from Budget Unit 8109 to cover the unpaid Zone 8 billings and the shortfall that we have in Zone 8 from the amount of money that's collected.
Yes, so I just wanted to make sure that some of these things were said.
I appreciate that. And that's not new. We've been spending more money in Zone 8 than we collect over many years.
And with the Caltrans project helping with some of that, that's going to be a big deal.
Absolutely.
So, right.
Yep. The last thing I wanted to bring up was our fixed assets, and I just wanted to highlight those, that we respectfully request approval for advanced purchases of those, and I'll go through the budget units on those as Budget Unit 3011, the road division. We have HVAC improvements to one of our yards, a truck-mounted snowplow, and a Fecon brush cutter are the fixed assets that we would like to purchase. I should note that we have been so impressed with that Fecon unit that we received through the Soda Bay Corridor project that we're buying another one. That piece of equipment is very, very good, and our operator has really figured out how to use that. So it's an excellent piece of equipment. So we'd like to buy another one. In Budget Unit 9905, 8 pool vehicles. Budget Unit 9908, we have 2 tilt deck trailers and a Ford F-250 4x4 truck. In Budget Unit 9911, more HVAC improvements. And in Budget Unit 8109, our properties in the Middle Creek project, Ford F-250 4x4 truck. That truck is on order. It's actually a carryover from this year, but we won't receive it in time, and so it's being carried over to this fiscal year. And a utility trailer and a utility vehicle and trailer that is being grant funded, and some water sampling equipment. So with that, that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions of me or Marina or Alicia, we'd be happy to try to answer those.
Supervisor Green?
I just want to backtrack on, and I don't know if it's 81 or not. Again, I can't read budgets very good in my first year, but Adobe Creek Conjunctive Use Project would be kind of a feasibility study or a planning study. I don't see it under 8101, so I assume that would be carried under a bigger umbrella as part of the Watershed Protection District or something, at least in the early planning. And then we got dinged for a couple reporting violations, so I want to make sure we have any flow meters we need to make sure we that it's either already been addressed, that we can report with our existing technology out of Kelsey and Adobe Creeks, or if there's any additional stream flow monitoring or equipment needed to ensure compliance with that. Are we where we need to be on that?
Yep.
Okay, I'll open it up for the public. Kim, do we have anybody in Zoom?
No.
Okay, then I will bring it back, and we have Public Works and Water Resources.
Madam Chair, I move to approve, and I don't believe we had any amendments or any changes. Budget units 1903, 1908, 3011, 3062 through 3081, and 3081?
Through.
It's through. 3122, 3123, 8463, 8464 through 8472, 8483 through 8492, 9905, 9907 through 9909, 9911, and then moving on, approving budget units 1672 through 1674, 8101, 8104, 8105, 8107 through 8109.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd just like to thank your board for your attention this afternoon, and also to thank administration for all of their help this year, and like to thank Marina and my fiscal staff, who are absolutely spectacular. Alicia Ayala, Lindsay Nolan, Sylvia Valadez, and Jacqueline Stores, all just great folks, and they do a fantastic job. So thank you very much.
We have a great team.
I
Thank you
do.
so much.
Yes, thank you.
All right, next up, we have County Library. It's so good to see you, Christopher.
So thank you.
All right.
See, am I at the microphone? So I'm Christopher Veach, County Librarian, and I just want to thank you for considering this recommended budget, and for the admin office for all their work in putting this together. My budget units start on page D279 or page 329 of the PDF, and I'm going to cover both of my units at the same time. They're closely related. So I have two units, 6022 and 6023, and those both support the operations of the library to promote reading, literacy, and lifelong learning in Lake County. The main library fund, 125, Unit 6022, is primarily funded with a dedicated property tax approved by the voters in 1974, and those property taxes make up the majority of all revenue. There are also various grants that fund specific programs, as well as a contribution from the general fund for staff positions and to partially cover county overhead. And then Budget Unit 6023, Fund 71, historically this was funded entirely by community donations and helped support our library collection and events. But this year it also contains $1.6 million for our capital projects, which are primarily grant funded, and that's the majority of revenue seen in this unit for the upcoming year. For the community donation piece, though, the library will still continue to partner with community nonprofits, the Friends of the Lake County Library and the Lake County Literacy Coalition, who are the main sources of donations for the library from the community. So a little bit of our accomplishments over this past year. So we have increased use of the library in the main metrics we track. Circulation of library materials has increased about 8%, combining print and digital. And digital checkouts continue to make up about 25% of our total circulation. Use of our public computers and Wi-Fi has also increased about 25%. And usage of our Wi-Fi hotspots for checkouts have also increased, which is to be expected since that's a new program we have. The number of programs we present and attendance at our programs and events has more than doubled from the past year. And more than half of those programs are targeted at children. So there's a greater increase in the attendance at our library events this last year. This spring, we also hosted a community-wide reading event that I wanted to call out, The Big Read, featuring poetry of Natalie Diaz, with a grant from the National Endowment of the Arts. And The Big Read was incredibly successful, despite the snowstorm in the center of our planned program of events. So in this upcoming budget year, we plan to continue building up our library collections. This will let us continue to provide digital resources as well as continue improvements on our print collection. We are close to reaching our goal of 25% of our print collection being published within the last 5 years. And at some of our branches, such as our smaller branch in Upper Lake, we have already reached that goal. This year, in regards to the events the library hosts, we'll focus on promoting and maintaining our interest-based clubs. So those ongoing events that meet monthly or more often, like our book clubs and makerspace clubs, really allow people to come together and form strong community ties. A goal from last year that we're still working on is we're on the verge of launching the library bookmobile for service, as well as our library app. So the bookmobile is partially an ARPA-funded project, as well as being funded by a state grant, and it has been held up due to some of the laminate countertops being delayed and extra inspections for the vehicle's solar battery system. However, the vehicle is in the final stages and should be delivered soon, maybe as early as July, so it will be carried forward into this next budget year. There is $200,000 that was added by the admin office that should cover this purchase unless we need to do something to carry it forward in the capital projects.
We need to do it right now.
Account code. So yeah, it would need to be 196,658 would need to be then included in the
196 what?
196,658.
Okay, I had 34, so thank you.
And that's
Okay, so
D23 or
in
6272.
it's 62, so it's budget unit 6022, a capital asset added in account 62-72 for $196,658 for the bookmobile. $96,000 is already covered under the grant. $100,000 will be added when we get to budget unit for the ARPA funding, so it'll be 1120 transfer.
okay. Are we having some kind of party when we get that thing?
Yes,
so excited.
when it finally arrives. It's been delayed a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to report we are one of in the grant cohort of people who received a state library grant. We're going to be one of the first to receive our bookmobile, so it's very exciting.
Okay, we're going on a District 5 tour because District 5 has been without a library, and I'm so excited.
So the biggest change from our previous year budgets are the capital improvement projects from the Building Forward Library Infrastructure Grant Program from the State Library, and that's reflected in Budget Unit 6023. There are capital improvements at all of our library branches focusing on safety as required by the grant, and the biggest addition will be solar backup generation at our 3 largest branches. This work will be mainly done by public services, but may have impacts on use of the library by the public, so we will do our best to remain open to the public as much as possible throughout any kind of construction that might impact use. I also wanted to touch on our position allocation. Some of our positions are funded by the general fund through the CAN grant, and those positions are what enable us to run more events for the public, extend our hours in Clear Lake and Middletown, and do more outreach in the community. This year, we are also asking to move our literacy program coordinator position from 1/2 time to 3/4 time. Before the pandemic, the literacy program relied heavily on extra help. Increasing the hours on this position will give more time for the coordinator to complete some of that work, as well as perform additional outreach for adult literacy without the reliance on extra help. The literacy program is funded in part by a state grant. And then we do have one unfunded position, a branch library coordinator, that the library does not plan to fill at this time. So that concludes my overview of the library budget, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Biggest question was bookmobile. I got that answered.
I've yet to see it in a parade, so that's what I'm waiting for.
We hoped it would be here for July for the parade, but it doesn't look like it.
I cannot wait.
Hybrid or full electric?
It is a fossil fuel powered vehicle, but it is,
Hybrid.
but the systems on board are powered by solar.
All right.
So hybrid.
Yeah, hybrid.
Yeah,
That way, when
Well,
you
we're-
stop, it uses the battery.
yes.
Can you break out where the CAN grant comes in your revenues? I don't see it broken out, and maybe I'm misreading it again.
Are you clicking on, Stephen? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the CAN grant is received in, I believe it's 80, 81?
8122.
Okay, yeah, 8122 and 8123. And not all of that is CAN grant, only a portion of it is.
So where does it end up in 6022 then?
It's in 125-6022.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And there will be 100,000 added to that figure from 1120 due to the change in the extra 100 grand for the bookmobile.
Which was in this year's budget, but is just being carried forward.
On that note, that's a change that I didn't mention. So, 1 second, come back to that one.
Okay, I'll open up for public comment. Do we have anybody in Zoom? Okay. Do you want to, do we need to discuss it, Stephen, before we approve?
All right, I do need to add one more adjustment to budget unit 6022. Revenue account 81-22 operating transfers in. Need to add $100,000 because that's the revenue coming in from ARPA.
For the capital asset. Thanks.
Correct.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
move to approve 6022 with the changes as amended to both capital assets and the revenues, and 6023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you so much. It's good
Thank
to see
you.
you. Next, we have County Council. It's getting on here again, right?
It's the opposite of the cold that it used to be.
Oh my God,
It's hot as heck back there.
feels hot and still.
Where's the thermostat at? Like, where's the reader?
The thermostat has menopause.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Lloyd Gintivano, County Council. I'll just go through each budget unit. We have 3 in our office. But before I do want to thank staff, the County Council's office for their hard work in making the transition as smooth as possible in our office. And it's going to be a running theme for each budget unit. I also appreciate the assistance that administration provided, the auditor controller. I was speaking to Sarah Shukart just all throughout the day, the course of the day. She provided some really good assistance today and even before in preparing for this budget. So I'll start with budget unit 1231, which is the County Council's general fund budget. The bulk of the budget, as you can see, comes from wages, salaries, and benefits from staff in the county council's office. One change that we are planning to hopefully implement in this next fiscal year, 23-24, is the implementation of case management software for our office. And as you see in the cover memo or cover sheet, the purpose for that is to hopefully mitigate some of the large volume of paper that we have in our office. And that's to complement the retention policy that is already in place in our office. Our office is relatively low maintenance. We are a staff of 8 employees when we are fully staffed. And I mentioned that because our office space is, our office itself consists of 6 office spaces and 1 front area. So if we do the math there, we are also planning on making certain arrangements, possible renovations, in order to create an office for a deputy position. And currently, there were 2 vacant deputy positions in our office. We've filled 1 position, and he is scheduled to start this July of this year. So after that gets filled up, the next step will be to fill up that other position, and that is tied into the arrangements that we're looking at as far as just in relation to our office layout. And unless the board has any questions, I can move on to the next budget unit.
Happy to hear that you found somebody.
Thank you. So the next budget unit is, I'll just do budget unit 9919 next, which is our ISF public liability budget. As you can tell from the figures, that there's only a slight change from the adopted 22-23 fiscal year when that budget was adopted. I should have backtracked. ISF public liability is related to the administrative risk management functions in regards to the county's public liability claims, and that typically goes through the county's third-party administrator as part of the county's insurance coverage. The amounts, in essence, that you see before you as being requested for the 23-24 fiscal year, part of that is based with the estimates that we received from PRISM, which stands for Public Risk Innovation Solutions and Management, which is the risk-sharing insurance pool that the county is a participant of. Purpose of PRISM is to provide cost-effective insurance and risk management solutions for counties, not just ours, as part of that pool. In determining the premiums, the amounts, which is the majority of which takes up the majority of the amounts outlined here, there's typically 3 factors in determining the amounts of the premium amounts for insurance. There's the cost of claims / litigation. Payroll factors are also a factor, and also the current market state of insurance. And from what I gather, despite the slight change that you see here from the 22-23 fiscal year, the insurance is still, relatively speaking, a hard market, which means there is currently still a greater demand for insurance, and insurance coverages are relatively speaking still harder to get. One thing that I do have planned, or our office has planned, is to just obtain more referrals for law firm contacts from our third-party administrator, so that referrals to litigation where a party files a claim first. If the claim is denied, If it leads to litigation, then it still gets managed at that early stage to the county's third-party administrator under PRISM. And the plan here is to just obtain and review the law firms who the cases typically involving damages where these lawsuits will be referred or outsourced to. And overall, we do appreciate each of the departments' cooperation and responsiveness in communicating with the county's third-party administrator, especially on the claims review stage of things, because that does streamline the claims process a lot. So we do appreciate the responsiveness of the departments and their cooperation in helping us just process these claims through, along with our third-party administrator. Unless there are any questions, I could move on that budget unit. I could move on to the next one. And the last one would be budget unit 9920, which is the county's budget in relation to workers' compensation. That is also part of the county's participation under PRISM, and much like the public liability budget unit 9919, this budget unit 9920 is also in part, the amounts that you see there are in part based on premium projections provided by PRISM. Still a hard market when it comes to workers' insurance coverage, much like in public liability. And much like before, our office does strive to get employees back to work as soon as possible, because doing so would reduce claims of workers' compensation. And also, at least in part, it would potentially boost employee morale by bringing the employee back to work. And much like with the claims processing through the public liability budget unit, we do also again appreciate the department's by and large cooperation with the county's third-party administrator and workers' compensation in having these workers' compensation claims processed and responded to, because again it helps streamline that process so that the employee who is subject to workers' comp can get back to work as soon as possible.
So I have a question for you, Lloyd, and I am very sorry that I didn't bring it up to you before. It was in my notes, and it was something that I spoke to Anita about before. The amount of hours that we have for public records requests, are we tracking that? I'm just wondering if that's something that we need to budget for, because that is, or it can be, a big time burden. And I'm just not sure that we're aware of how much time that takes your office and other offices.
They do take up a significant chunk of time from the request coming in, from the point where the request comes in all the way to the production, if there's going to be a production or disclosure of records. I do believe that there is, at least on ExecuTime, a link or an option that you can select whenever we report our time, and maybe
there's a time study code for the
Time
PRAs in ExecuTime.
that's what they're called. So our office has been diligently keeping track of that whenever a public records comes in, either to our office by way of the requester or another department who needs help in reviewing the records for any redactions that may need to take place. The staff in our office logs in the time under that time study code, which then could be retrieved later on to determine, and we could look into that issue too, as far as the number of hours being spent. If it's significant enough, that would possibly warrant a separate budget unit, and that we can work with staff from admin and the auditor controller's office.
I can add to that as well. There are conversations. In fact, Mr. French, who will be up next, I believe, is leading a conversation in the technology committee group to figure out what email policies would help reduce the number, because some emails pop up during the search, but they have absolutely nothing to do with anything. They're just random information emails, not actual communication that would be the result of that search in the first place. And so what kind of email policy could be put into place that would help reduce the number of emails that county council would have to search through and read through? Because I've heard always tens of thousands. I don't know if that's just to say there's a lot or if it's truly tens of thousands, but yeah, there's also a plan to try and reduce those hours because those hours very much do exist.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would like to see maybe an annual report on the amount of hours and the records requests. I mean, those are also public documents, but I feel like we should have an understanding on how that's impacting us and finding out if we need to budget accordingly.
Sounds like it's an easy number to find.
I talked about that last year, I think, too.
I think you did. Yeah.
Certainly
Get that
will.
in September, that would be great.
Yeah, if that could be part of the September budget, I think that'd be really helpful for all of us.
We'll get to work on that.
Okay. I don't know who was first. Supervisor Green?
Yeah, super quick question on 9919. I was super excited to see fire insurance for $205, and I wanted to make sure we paid the premium, but I assume that our real fire coverage is lumped under the other, the much larger number, the 2.7 million. So just want to make sure we have fire insurance and we're paying the premium, and I assume it's more than $205. So is that lumped in the larger amount? It's like this, is that the PRISM, the big money, the insurance other under 15-10? Is that PRISM and that covers fire?
Yes, I want to say yes. And of course, as with any insurance agreements, there's coverages, right? Coverage restrictions, coverage conditions. But that would be the overall, the larger insurance dash other amount would be the sort of the umbrella or the comprehensive one that may include fire, not just.
Okay, so that's just a little teeny rider. It's okay. Thank you.
Those kind of insurances are broken out among all budget units that operate within a building, and then it goes through exposure, a certain percentage, and just having FTEs, the remaining is spread out.
Supervisor Sabatier?
No, no. Plain.
What?
I was just playing.
Change your mind?
No.
Okay. All right, I will open up for public comment. Do we have anybody in the Zoom room?
Johanna, nobody's in the Zoom room.
Yeah, none of us are. Just you. All right, we'll bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, I will move to approve budget items 1231, 9919, and 9920.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can take a 5-minute break, but I would like to stop at 5 or as close to 5 as we can today. We had a long day yesterday, and we'll have another long day tomorrow, and I know we're all a little tired. So let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 4, and we'll go for about another hour. Maybe we'll get through animal care and control, maybe, hopefully.
Just looking for Lucerne lighting district.
We're ready, back on, and we have IT now.
This one's going to take forever.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Shane French, IT Director. For the information technology budget this year, just want to go over quickly a few of our accomplishments and goals for the next year. We did have some success in modernizing our network utilizing the ARPA funds. I'll talk a little more about that. Made some progress on information systems policies through our Information Technology Governance Committee. We migrated to the new website and content management system. Implemented new document management and electronic business process systems. Expanded the use of electronic workflows. And we upgraded and kept current office productivity tools. And for 2023, 2024, we intend to assist departments with more paperless initiatives, significantly enhance endpoint protection to prevent ransomware and other attacks, and doing some infrastructure updates and replacement for critical county systems. With respect to ARPA, we received some pretty generous allocations for ARPA funds, and we were able to accomplish a number of things with those funds this year. We replaced and upgraded 2 fixed wireless systems for connectivity to Clear Lake and Kelseyville facilities, county facilities. As I mentioned, the Civic Plus new website and content management system was implemented. We added capacity and performance to our off-site backup systems to increase resiliency in the case of a loss of data in the county. We paid for advanced endpoint security for servers and some desktop and laptop endpoints. And that again addresses some of our concerns around ransomware and other information security concerns. We replaced end-of-life network equipment and upgraded to new, faster equipment at 23 county facilities. This is equipment that was end-of-life and end-of-support. And we updated licensing for Windows Server installations, allowing us to update and support OS for many of our servers. So basically continue to receive security updates and functionality updates. Modernization is basically what that's about. We implemented information security awareness training for all county employees. That's a project we've been looking at for a number of years, and we're able to accomplish this year with those ARPA funds. And then finally, we added capacity to our data center storage. As you can imagine, we're kind of always running up against the limit of what we can support, and departments are always needing to store more. So that was a good addition to the data center. And as far as next fiscal year, a couple things we've earmarked for ARPA. We want to implement a managed detection and response system. Basically what this is allowing a qualified third party to augment our information security team. And this is not just, it's information security professionals that are basically available to us at all time and are proactively threat hunting for us. So it's a pretty big deal. In fact, a lot of cybersecurity insurance is now asking whether you even have this. So I'm excited about that implementation. I think it's going to make our network a lot more secure. We're planning on doing a replacement of our virtual infrastructure. This is basically the data center equipment that runs the majority of our on-premise servers and systems. And then finally, we're looking at an additional expansion of data center storage, because as I mentioned, we're always kind of running up against the limit there. So there are some significant changes from last year. Our overall top-line budget number has increased significantly. And ARPA will help us with a number of these, but not all of them. First is an increased cost for internet services. That's a $6,000 increase for the year. This is in order to support additional cloud services adoption, such as Office 365, as well as off-site backups. We are, again, going to be implementing information security awareness training. That is a $12,750 increase over last year. Our Microsoft Office 365 licensing, now that we are basically fully implemented on that licensing, that is an increase of $34,406. You know, as I've mentioned before, we are kind of currently in a way where so much of what we used to purchase and just, you know, it would be a one-time purchase and we would utilize that system for a number of years. Almost everything in my world is now going to a subscription base. So I've kind of fought for a number of years against just arbitrarily moving on to these cloud-based services and subscription-based services unless there was truly a defined benefit. But we are more and more finding that there just aren't other options available to us. So, you know, I think the trend over the next several years, and hopefully for not too much longer, will be, I don't want to call it an accelerated increase in these costs, but essentially that's what it is because we're onboarding a lot of cloud services that maybe our peer counties onboarded a number of years ago and have been paying for years and years. We're just now seeing some of those costs hit our doorstep, I guess. The biggest one, I guess, is this managed detection and response services. That is a $95,000 cost. It is very expensive, but it is really a lot of service that you're getting. It truly is information security engineers with eyes, what we would call eyes on glass, basically individuals that are actually actively watching and hunting for threats in addition to software and information services that will allow them to prevent and, if necessary, respond to these threats. So that's a pretty big cost, but I think it's an important one. And then finally, IT is now going to be responsible for the overall Laserfish cloud licensing. That is a $72,250 cost. It's available to all departments, and it's something that IT manages centrally now. As far as fixed assets, we have a few requests in here. And they align with our goals for the year. First of all is I have in here 4 Dell PowerEdge servers. We do have some end-of-life data center equipment, servers for our virtual environment that are going end-of-life very quickly here by next fiscal year. We're looking to replace those. I'm requesting $100,000 for that. 1 NetApp disk shelf, so basically this is an expansion of our storage. Again, we're always expanding our storage. That has an estimated cost of $50,000. And then finally, I am asking for a vehicle. This is basically what we need is an all-wheel drive vehicle. We currently have an old Ford Escape. It seems to be in the shop more than we actually have it, you know, out for service. So we're looking for a small all-wheel drive vehicle that'll get us to the top of Mount Canocti when we need to get up there. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for me.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, I too have seen the trend toward all subscription all the time and all cloud all the time. And in addition to any financial concerns with that, being captive to any number of software as a service providers, when our cloud is reliant on any number of clouds out there, you know, you got to think about security, just global security. You know, God forbid, there's going to be some cloud downages in future years, and so how do we set up redundancy within our own systems? How do we safeguard against any potential broader, you know, whatever, DDoS attacks on individual vendors? It just seems like I get why the companies are putting us there. That's how they keep money coming in, and that's also how they fund security upgrades and feature upgrades and what have you. But man, it's I'm old school, I know. I go back to DOS and stuff like that. But I wanted that software in a box on my machine, isolated from all these cloud things. And am I a dinosaur, or are there financial and potential security risks that come with over-reliance on software, subscription software?
Well, sure there are, right? I mean, anytime data is outside of your network, it is essentially outside of your control, right? And you're enlisting a certain amount of trust with the vendors that provide these services. Ultimately, though, networks are so intertwined and interconnected anymore that that's kind of already the case anyway. I mean, there's already information security concerns, right? There's ransomware, and there's all these things that we're trying to protect against even on our on-premise systems, right? So like with respect to things like Microsoft Office, that's the big one. That's the big expense. That's the place everybody's going for their main line of business, day-to-day business Office suite applications. I mean, that system can do a whole lot of things. I think I heard some conversations earlier about, having a software and not even using 10% of it, right? That very much can be the case with the cloud systems as well, right? I mean, you can get quite a lot of benefit out of these systems, but will we actually leverage all of that benefit? It's hard to say in every case, right? But ultimately, the problem really is that we're kind of backed into a corner with a lot of this because you have to have Microsoft Office. The state is sending you a spreadsheet and they're saying you have to use a certain version of Office for things, for example. We've actually seen this in the past. And so, I mean, it's not even like you can go and say, well, I'm just going to go to some open source software, for example. So it's kind of frustrating in that way, right? However, I think that the challenge for us is just to try to get as much value out of these solutions as we can, and that's kind of the plan that I have is if we're going to be forced into these things, let's leverage them as far as we possibly can to make sure that we're actually getting our money's worth out of these things.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'll just say the opposite. Yay to technology. We don't have that many resources. We've been talking all day about vacancies. If it wasn't for the use of technology to help extend our capabilities and our capacities, then we would be much further behind in what we're supposed to provide to our communities. So I think we have no choice. We have to double our efforts in a smart way. And I appreciate all the efforts that you're making to make sure that we're doing that in a safe environment. Just to make you smile, I did experience in Arizona, their IT department is in charge of expanding broadband in the community, so I'm not going to ask for that today, but I thought it was interesting. Just to make you happy about what you do have on your plate.
Okay, do we have anyone in the Zoom room? Do we have public in the Zoom room? Oh, okay, good. Any questions from the Zoom room? Okay, then we'll bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, I move to approve 1904 budget unit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move
you.
on to auditor.
Not always.
I know. That's why.
Brazil, I don't know if they still do it, but why would we use Microsoft Office? It's a backdoor access. They work with the NSA. Linux, and they've been teaching all the kids to program Linux, so they have their own operating system. They have their own software using it.
Thank you.
It can be done in software.
Yeah, but
You can't
it's,
just grab
right.
Linux.
Well, that just got depressing.
That's for the 1920.
Not yet?
Hang on.
More depressing?
She'll refer to it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
We wanted to be really prepared. Okay.
The very first one, Joanna.
Right?
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, board and attendees. I'm Genevieve Harrington, Lake County's Lake County's Auditor Controller County Clerk. As you may know, the Auditor Controller County Clerk Department is a consolidated office of the County Clerk and Auditor Controller. Both functions are addressed separately in law. Functions of the Auditor Controller include, but are definitely not limited to, financial reporting, general ledger accounting for all county departments, budgeting, property tax administration and allocation, administration and processing of the county payroll and accounts payable, the A87 cost plan and development and coordination, audit coordination, and court settlement distribution. Divisions include payroll, property tax, and the general ledger financial reporting. The auditor's controller was tasked with the responsibility of coordination, claiming, and financial disaster recovery as a result of the multiple emergencies that have occurred over the years, and those details will be presented separately in Budget Unit 1920. Functions of the county clerk include marriage licensing, fictitious business name statement filing, notary oaths, fish and wildlife administrative fees, Form 700 processing, conflict of interest code maintenance and administration, as well as a variety of additional county clerk filings and duties as required by the County Board of Supervisors and the State of California. This department is a general fund service department, also partially funded by a combination of user fees and services to others. I'll pop on into some accomplishments. So starting with the Auditor Controller, we completed the first phase of the contract automation project. So now all contracts and contract payments are available electronically. Probably said this before, it's just a very exciting thing for us. But all current and new contracts are captured and indexed, resulting in a comprehensive list of all county agreements. This provides for more accurate lease accounting and lends itself to improved accounts payable processes. Each agreement is given a unique identifier that I believe can expand to future countywide processes. Of course, we continue to meet our statutory deadlines, most especially thanks to Kathy, all year, but most especially towards the end of last year. We definitely hunkered down. So some accomplishments for the clerk. We finalized the upgrade of the clerk's doc software. So those ARPA funds are being used, invoices are being submitted. We actually went live on June 5th. That was very exciting. Bringing some much needed modernization to our most common public services. So marriage license and FBN applications can be filled out online ahead of time. The applications are saved in our database for up to 60 days, and they can be easily retrieved when at the customer's convenience. When they show up, we pull up the information, it auto-populates, it's beautiful. And it reduces the additional keying. So it eliminates the manual entry by the clerk. FBNs, so fictitious business name statements, if you know what those are. A lot of times people want to look up local business information. They can do that online. They don't have to call us. The upgraded clerk doc software also comes with an automated cashiering system that greatly increases securities and efficiencies. No more carbon copy handwritten receipts as well. It spits out a deposit. Oops, it helps with the cash statement. It's fantastic. So, and finally, while this is not only an auditor clerk accomplishment, we want to thank the board, my predecessor, admin, IT, public services, for making our office expansion possible. We're filling the spaces, so we built it, they're coming. And so on that note of filling spaces, you'll notice there's an increase in our appropriation for salaries. We are requesting 2 new positions. Brace myself. I've been watching this all day, dreading this. So, the auditor's office has been utilizing the accountant auditor allocated to the 1920 budget unit for some time now, of course, properly charging out the time using time study codes. This increase in allocation allows the 1121 budget unit to reflect the amount of staff truly necessary to carry out our mandated responsibilities. Payroll, property tax, GASB statement functions, all absolutely needed additional support. In addition to that position, we are requesting a business software analyst. As has been discussed by my predecessor, IT, the board, admin for over 3 years, that need is there. And this position will absolutely lend itself to improved business process efficiencies. Advances are necessary, such as being able to take credit cards and other forms of electronic payment countywide. As stewards of the county dollar, it's imperative that we reduce as much duplication of efforts as possible while increasing accuracy and productivity. In order to integrate this technology into our current environment, we need a dedicated person who can learn us and help bridge us over to this decade. Business process efficiency.
Century.
I'm not trying to get up to today, just in the last 10 years or so. Business process efficiencies need to be evaluated regularly. This is an ongoing function and will also serve as an IT liaison. As this position learns our report writing software, they will also provide reports to administration and human resources. As we eventually pivot to a new software implementation, this position will be our internal project manager as the rest of the staff ensures the day-to-day responsibilities are met, such as, AP, payroll, all that has to keep going. The AS400, it's absolutely a trusted, faithful piece of technology and forward-thinking for its time. If you programmed it for a specific process in 1985, you may never have to touch it again, as long as you never need to add or modify. But we've added, we've built a cloud to another AS400 in Florida. And so as things need to be added and changed, it can't take it anymore. So there's a patchwork of valiant efforts to integrate newer technologies with our legacy systems, but we're just not able to keep up. Our capabilities are so far behind, we need to take action pretty soon. My next step, if the board is supportive, is to start an RFP to obtain a consultant that will assess our finance system needs and help us with the future selection. And I just want to say it's an honor to take part in the plans that my predecessor and this board have put into place. I've been watching prior year budget hearings, and I know this is something that keeps coming up. And so I'd like to pick up where we left off and bring it forward. And so then I'll just move on to some goals for this upcoming fiscal year. Create a plan for the next phase of contract automation, implement new check form printing software, which sunset a couple months ago, but we're working on that. That'll be ARPA funds as well. Evaluate necessary system reports, increase training and development for staff, hopefully move forward with a new ERP, finance system, continue to receive awards for our financial reporting, and definitely focus on staff retention. So that brings me to the end of 1121. So I'll ask for questions there before we move on to the.
I have a question. If we're talking about modernizing and reducing redundancy, is there any way that we could stop receiving the paper payroll receipt check? Because I would prefer an electronic copy, and I know that there's a lot of work that goes into that, and I think that could save a couple dollars.
And if you maybe could go online and see it when you want to see it.
Yes.
Click into a portal.
Yes.
It's something that could happen with a new ERP.
Okay.
Yeah. And right now, the way it's set, everything runs on that same stock. So with what we have now, those are the changes that we really can't make with the technology we have today. But yes, it's definitely on our radar.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I did want to say about those two positions, with the auditor's office, it's not strictly like a general fund cost. With the auditor's office, it goes through the cost allocation plan. So where they time study, it's paid by all other departments, which would be roughly 50% general fund cost. And on the pay stubs, at home, I go and scan it in myself. I'd rather just have it a PDF already.
That's one step too many.
Check stock's not free, so to not have to use it is definitely ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep. And time. How many fingers touch that?
every click, every sheet of paper, every ink.
What? $25 per check
You need to get out.
And that's an old calculation.
for each check that each staff person gets each month.
So we
Each
don't have
check,
to-
period, vendor, anything, yes.
Oh my God.
That's why sending out like a $2 check, everybody's like, really?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Supervisor Green, or I don't know who was
No,
first.
go for it, Green.
Supervisor Green?
Supervisor Dino, why not? I like my paper receipt. I hope you keep doing them. And I
Yes.
hope if any move is made to move away from it, you'll bring it back, if only so I can go all Dino again. But just as I spoke with Shane previously, your department has some of the most sensitive data. I get that you have outdated software. I get that you're excited to move forward. But again, security, security, security.
Right.
So are you, I assume technology governance would be in there, IT would be in there. But if it's going to be all cloud all the time, Does the state have any requirements for local redundancy? You know, you're getting pulled in two different directions. You're saying don't be redundant. I'm saying be redundant on a local server that isolates our information.
Now, backup redundancy, yes, but just manually keying in the same information over and over, that's the redundancy we want to eliminate. And so as far as, you know, backing up, that would, I think, be county by county. I mean, I would assume we have ours, that we're backed up. And I mean, I don't think we're going to give up any security. What we have now is not ideal, and it's not functioning in a way to allow us to meet our responsibilities. So I don't need to.
And for $25, you could print out your own PDF.
Oh, and just to be clear, yes, any cash payment will always have a paper receipt. It's just instead of you writing the date and the person's name and the product that will spit out a receipt that matches the amount of the payment you took. But yeah, always a paper receipt for transaction.
And I do want to say, this is very much, the new ERP is very much in front of the TGC, Technology Governance Committee. We're having special meetings just for this because it affects every single department.
Yeah.
On many levels.
Supervisor Spatier.
Efficiencies, 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 no matter whether one of us likes it or not, we need to provide staff with the greatest tools for the greatest efficiencies, because that enhances the service that we can provide. I think it's as simple as that, and we need to keep aiming for that. I feel like I need to correct you. You do not have to ask us if you could do the RFP. As far as budgeting for it, we don't have the money yet, but yes, we need to move forward and start supporting to add more every single year.
Everybody's nodding.
Yes. The process, I just want to thank the new electeds that are involved in the technology committee group. I don't know that we would even entertain the conversation a year ago. And so I really appreciate the fact that everybody's on board. We want to move on this. We want to get this going. And it is about joining this century with everything and every access that our public should have. I just talked to a construction worker who doesn't want to come from South Lake to go all the way to Lakeport to pay for a bill or submit for his RFPs or whatnot. Let's make it as simple as possible, especially for our locals. We want to make it as simple as possible for them to be a part of what we're doing.
I agree completely.
And briefly, I just want to counter, it's not just about the departments, it's about the people we serve. So yeah, some of the younger generation, maybe a lot of the generation, they want the apps, they want the QR codes, they want that. We also have people that don't have working landlines. We have people that don't have email addresses. This is a poor rural county with people who have very large information gaps. So I want us to move forward and adopt technological tools in a reasonable manner. I want us to continue to serve customers who are not comfortable with certain platforms to the best of our ability.
Well, yes, and we will leave no one behind.
And we are actually prepared for that. We still have our clipboards out for those who truly want to handwrite the application. They absolutely can. If they still want to call us, the feedback we get is, hey, wait, I went onto your website. I can't search for this. They're expecting it, and we don't have it. And so we will. But if somebody calls us and asks for it over the phone, we'll help them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Next item. If there's no more questions.
Okay. All right. So Budget Unit 1920, Disaster Response and Recovery, was established for a centralized location to track and claim the costs associated with declared disasters. The responsibilities of the budget unit were absorbed by the Auditor Controller Department in 2015. Here to speak on this budget unit is Dakota Hockett, our new-ish Emergency Event Fiscal Manager.
The 1920 budget unit is a special revenue fund, and it is funded day to day through state and federal administrative payments. We have reserves held for audit exceptions, insurance repayments, and advance repayments, in addition to the initial $2.15 million provided from the general fund to ensure there was money available in the event of a disaster. Thus far, the 1920 budget unit has been able to leave those funds as is, and the $2.15 million remains within the reserves in full. Disaster Response and Recovery has claimed reimbursement for 13 federally declared disasters and is in the beginning stages for claiming the 14th, the recent February storms. This budget unit has also administered the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Safety CARES Act funding, PG&E settlements, and the Public Safety Power Shutoff funds. The disaster assistance we are eligible for comes from both FEMA, authorized by the Robert T. Stafford Act, and the California Office of Emergency Services, CalOES, authorized by the California Disaster Assistance Act. We, therefore, technically receive reimbursement through two different entities, the timing of which sometimes lines up well together and sometimes does not. For one event, we'll receive all the FEMA funds right away and only some of the CalOES funds, or vice versa. Claiming is further complicated by the assistance type we are assigned. As many are aware, 9 of our 14 declared disasters have been fires. When a disaster is declared for a fire, the reimbursement claims can be authorized through either public assistance grant funding or fire management assistance grant funding, both of which have slightly different purviews. Due to the difference in grant assistance received, the eligible costs can vary from disaster to disaster, even though they may both be fires. Some accomplishments for the year include formally collating and augmenting the various policies and procedures the 1920 budget unit uses to create a unified document so that the basic claiming steps have been captured and are available for reference. I understand that policies and procedures may not seem like an exciting achievement, but as someone who started in this budget unit prior to their establishment, it makes a world of difference. For a more traditionally exciting accomplishment, the Disaster Response and Recovery Budget Unit has reimbursed various departments a total of $798,579 this fiscal year. We have also initiated the closeout process for the Valley, Sulphur, and LNU complex fires. Goals for the coming year include doing what we've been doing by working on the events and getting them ready for closeout, as well as preparing for potential audits. We are subject to audits for up to 3 years after the final closeout. I have provided a disaster status handout, Johanna has provided, to show where each event is at in the claiming process as well. The majority of them are in some stage of closeout, meaning we are towards the end of the claiming process. Unfortunately, our emergency events keep coming, so even as we wrap up one event, another is at the midpoint and another is just beginning. The February storms applicant briefing is scheduled for June 22nd, and that's one of the first steps in claiming. As for the budget itself, the budget is driven by the anticipated disaster funding. Overall, outside of the administrative payments received, which are used to fund our position allocations and the office expenses, the majority of our state aid and federal disaster revenues leave the budget unit as reimbursement to other departments for expenses incurred during a disaster event. Finally, you may have noticed expenses budgeted for older events or events that are listed as in closeout. When we initiate closeout after our last small project is complete, FEMA and CalOES review all costs submitted and settle any projects that have not been paid or need to be adjusted. Once we receive the payment in full, we then reimburse the departments that originally incurred the expense. So those lingering expense accounts are because we have not been fully reimbursed just yet. This wraps up the Disaster Response and Recovery budget presentation. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Yes.
Supervisor Spatier?
So you mentioned that the reserve was created in 2015 after the Valley Fire?
The 2.15?
Yeah. Did I hear that incorrectly?
Well, I didn't mention any years the Disaster Response and Recovery Budget Unit was absorbed by the Auditor's Office in September of 2015.
The budget unit started at that point as well.
Oh, okay.
2.15 is our initial general fund contribution for fronting any expenses while a disaster is in effect.
But the 2.15 was put in that September 2015?
It's been reimbursed, yeah. I'm not sure if it was September, but right around there, yes.
And so just to ask, because I think I heard you said it's never been touched? As in, because my thoughts were it's used as kind of a liquid that can be passed on to those departments that have really been impacted by the emergencies until we get reimbursed. Okay. I was going to say, if it's never been touched, then is there a reason why it's still there? So, okay, I just wanted to.
It's cash flow.
It's never been reduced is what you're trying,
Yes,
is what I
thank
should
you.
have understood you as saying. Okay. And then, in the emails that you and I exchanged, you said we have $95,000 left in our PG&E settlement? I could have sworn I only know of using half of it for the roads for the sulfur fire, and we had about $3 million to start with. I should just get with you and figure out where that money went. It's just, it didn't make sense to me.
We can do this after I actually know where the reserves are more than they do because of working with Kathy directly on it. The 1.5 is part of the audit exceptions reserve, just like the 4
So
million.
it's still there?
It is still there.
Okay, it's just not titled PG&E.
Correct. It's
Okay.
titled as, retitled as that.
Okay, no, that makes perfect
And
sense.
general fund actually has over 4 million in the reserves there as cash flow.
Okay.
We've not been audited for a single event yet. Not.
That's why you need the audit.
And there are funds
Right.
we believe need to be returned,
Yeah, I've heard about some of those, so we'll have to see what happens.
not using it.
And just going back to the increase in staffing, in 1920, you had 14, so increasing it to 15 now, it seems to be within that range, so I have no problems with that. I just felt I needed to say something since you were worried.
1920.
Yeah, that's
Go
what it
with
says
it,
on my
go with it.
spreadsheet.
Just go with it.
Just go.
Let's go.
Okay, anything from the public? Do you have anyone in Zoom, Johanna? No? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, move to approve budget units 1121 and 1920.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Great job on your first one. Next, we have probation.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hear me now? Yeah.
Thanks for spending the day with us.
I will try to entertain you at the very end. It's kind of some
She
pressure.
was being sarcastic.
I know. Well, thank you for having us here today, and I really want to thank the admin and particularly Mr. Carter and all of his patience and help with me and learning the budget, which was something I did not have experience before. And I also like to thank my analyst, Cindy Rodriguez, who is currently on her way to Greece right now, in helping prepare our budget. Probation is Budget Unit 2302, and the probation department is tasked with handling all matters where juveniles over the age of 12 have interactions with law enforcement, and for all adults referred to the department for some type of court report or some type of community supervision. This can include pretrial release, probation supervision, and those that are released from custody after serving a sentence, either in prison or in jail. We collaborate with other agencies to create and implement evidence-based practices to ensure safety in the community, assist with rehabilitation, and reduce recidivism. This year, the department was awarded a mobile probation services grant, and we are very excited about this. We are going to be able to have a van that can go to where about 30% of our population live in homeless communities and help them obtain the services they need to no longer commit crimes and get on track. And we're hoping to partner with a behavioral health van and link those services together. The grant was for about $220,000, and with that, we're going to spend approximately $160,000 to purchase the vehicle. And our goal is to have that done by summer and get it into play by summer of next year.
I'm just going to interrupt I'm so glad we're doing this, and this is not the first mobile van that we're implementing, but this is how we're reaching the people where they are in our rural community. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you.
Another accomplishment of our last year was our Resilient Reentry event. We collaborated with Woodland Community College. We had over 100 injustice involved or formerly injustice involved individuals come out and learn about how to expunge a record, services that could help them with any kind of reentry. They had speakers to kind of motivate them, and we now have the second one being planned, and it's scheduled for October 6th at Woodland Community College, again from 9 to 1. And then we have now 3 school resource officers that are deputy probation officers at Upper Lake School District, Clear Lake School District, and Kelseyville School Districts. That is funded either by the school district or in collaboration with the County Office of Education. We have a request for another one at Canoctai School District, but currently we don't have the staffing to fill that position, and I'm doing my best to get that in play. Another big accomplishment with our community partners was the comprehensive prevention plan with the Child Welfare and Lake County Office of Education. We have created a comprehensive prevention plan to utilize federal dollars to look for ways to bring evidence-based practices in place in the county through all of our county partners to prevent child abuse. And that plan should be completed within the next month, and then implementation will start once the state has approved our plan. So we do have a significant vacancy rate in the position of deputy probation officer. Currently, we're at about 34.5% vacant. We do have 3 very good prospects that I believe will start within the next 2 months, but it still leaves us at a high vacancy rate in that position. Overall in the department, we're at 20% vacancy rates. You graciously gave us the signing bonus for that position, but in the last year, we've had several retirements. We had promotions, as you're well aware. We have a very young staff in our supervisors, so we are working hard to try to fill those positions, but as you've heard from the sheriff, law enforcement positions are very difficult to fill. We have one significant change to our budget this year of $885,410. This was funds that were found from several years of growth funds from our Youth Offender Block Grant, our Juvenile Reentry Grant, and the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act. We learned of this about at the time I was appointed to the position, and we've come up with ways to spend it where we're unable to do that before the end of the fiscal year. So with that, we are asking to purchase 2 vehicles, cage vehicles, SUVs, to get out to the communities where our officers need to be. And once those are received, our plan is to return 2 of the pool cars to the garage that are smaller, that we don't use the smaller cars as much as we need the cage cars. So with that money, that was part of the purchase. We've been working with Buildings and Grounds and Lars and his staff, and they are amazing. And we are looking at putting some kind of battery backup or solar power in our building. There has been a question of whether the building, because of its age, can take a battery backup system or not, or a generator. And they're currently looking at proposals to put that into place. Additionally, the stucco and the paint on the outside of our building is peeling off, and so we're going to redo that on the outside. We have had for many years a problem with the sewage system that comes from our building because of roots from the trees, and so a plan is in place to put a repair into that, but we also need to redo the downstairs of our building because of that, because it has seeped into the building several times and there's carpet in that downstairs, and so we want to redo that part of the bottom. Sorry.
It's really bad.
It's really bad. Finally, we did ask for a position change. We've had an office assistant 3 in our office, and with the low numbers of our probation officers, we find the need to have another probation aide rather than the office assistant, because they can do more of the duties that a probation officer could do in preparing reports for the court. And so we have underfilled that position currently, or overfilled, I guess, the office assistant to a probation aide, and we're asking that to be a permanent change so that the duties more align with what we need in the office. I think that's it. Any questions?
Questions? Supervisor Sabatier?
Love what your department does for the SROs. I know that that's very important to me, that we make sure we have that level of contact with our youth, and also providing the potential safety element that comes along with it in our school district, so I really appreciate that. One of the things I wanted to ask is not directed at you, but because of your comments about the incentives, in September, can we get an overarching look of the cost of these incentives and how it's working? I've heard of complications where people leave early, and how do we get the money back if they didn't actually fulfill their part? I know there's been complications, but we never really see what the total cost is, and if the cost is so low, maybe we can look at ways to help those that are still struggling and see if there's an increase that can occur, so that you don't have to be at 75 or 80%, because it's important, especially, I mean, all the work you're doing to try to do the outreach and to try to help out with those coming out, especially if they're not housed. Not having the staff just makes it that much more difficult to be able to meet the goals and expectations of your department. So I'd love to review that just to see where we are, if we do less or do more, depending on what it shows.
On the incentive, half is paid when they're hired and half is paid after a year. So if they do leave within that first year, at least it's not the full impact of it. We've only had one issue with that, and it was actually our choice that the person did not stay on, so.
We have consensus for that, to bring that back in September? Yeah? Okay.
We will attempt, and I
Or
say it
some
that
kind
way
of-
because it's not cut and dry, but we will bring what we can in September.
Okay, perfect. Supervisor Green?
Yeah, and I apologize, I should have asked you, and I may have asked you during my tour. Good to know I was trekking over a sewer-infested carpet. But let's resolve that. But Care Court, I don't know what involvement your department might have or what form it might take, but it's going to be ramping up in the next year. So I don't know if it's an FTE question or just advanced planning with the staff you already have. But have you considered much what department's involvement with Care Court will be, and have you supported that effort in this budget?
Yes, I don't believe we'll need more FTEs. I think if we could get closer to 90% filled on the DPO position, we would be fine to staff Care Court. And we have reached out to behavioral health, and we're just waiting for the meetings to start for the planning.
Okay. Do we have any public input on this item? No hands up. Okay, back to the board for action.
I'm going to do one because it's simple. I move to approve Budget Unit 2302 for probation.
Second. No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you so much. Great job.
Have a good night.
Had so many wonderful presentations from new department heads today. It's been great. And here comes our great traveler.
He looks seasoned.
The weather was horrible.
Can't choose those days.
Oh, yeah. Good memories, though. So, hello, board. I'm Jonathan Armis, department head for animal care and control in the medical clinic. 2703 is the animal care and control. We respond to calls for assistance from the public regarding stray dogs, aggressive dogs, bites, welfare checks. We are also responsible to take in stray dogs and injured animals and provide care for them, and try and reunite them with owners. Just a couple quick stats. We almost did about 1,800 calls for assistance last year, and we brought in about just under 1,300 animals into our shelter. Currently, we are actually, and I struggle saying this, but we are actually 100% staffed in the clinic, or in the animal care part. In the clinic, we are 0% staff. So we're kind of working on two extremes here. With that, we are a little bit behind my optimistic schedule of trying to do on-call, but I'm happy to announce that June 30th, we are starting our 24/7 on-call services with our officers. Some significant changes from the budget last year is we're seeing a salary increase. Part of that is due to the request I made with the Class and Comp Committee that was approved by the board. And then I am also looking to add an extra help employee. We changed last year to having more three-quarter full-time employment, and we just need that one little extra help to get us through for the year. The clothing account, we found an issue with the policy that we had to adjust our uniform policy. So I put more funds into that account to follow those changes. Our supplies account has increased, just the cost for a lot of our cleaning supplies and all of that has increased dramatically. And then a few things that I'm asking for extraordinary item requests are a new truck box. We're looking to replace another truck. In fact, our entire fleet is needing repair to be replaced, but all of our truck boxes are about 15, 20 years old. They're really worn out. The trucks and the boxes themselves are getting repaired more and more. And this box is full self-containing so that the air conditioning unit's part of it. We don't have to tie into the vehicle. We're looking to hopefully get some new cat condos. Currently, our cat condos were old cat condos that we took parts out and then made metal frames and put wire on it, and they're just wore out and need to be replaced. And then some fire and security system upgrades. We actually had an issue with our security system, and when the company came out, we realized we only have like 3 smoke detectors for our whole department. So we do want to get that looked at. And then we were looking to try and get some camera systems, surveillance systems. We were having a lot of issues with deceased dogs being dumped on our doorstep and all sorts of stuff. So we would like to keep an eye on those things. And that's all I have for 2703, if anyone has any questions before I go to the medical clinic.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, quick question. You were talking about getting a new box. Is that something that would be on the capital asset, or does it not belong on the capital asset list? Because I don't see anything for animal control on capital asset.
It would be on capital asset, and that would be an extraordinary request, so that would be September.
Oh, okay.
And that is, from admin's perspective, a shoo-in as long as we have 50 grand, which we will.
No, you need to have the tools in order to do the job, especially you're at 100%, so
Yeah.
let's make sure they all have the tools.
Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, Supervisor Green?
Yeah, I was just curious. I don't need the full breakdown, but security cameras there for sure. I've had inquiries about security cameras at other buildings. I don't know if we have a universal policy or if individual departments have different requirements for how much video storage has to be there and all that. But I certainly support security cameras at that facility, but I also want to be asking about and supporting security cameras in other facilities. So I don't know if you would know if there's a master policy you had to dive through to get into that.
I don't, I may be out of line here. I don't think so, but I did talk to Shane. I have talked to Lloyd, and then I talked to Lars. So where I ended up was told to put it on this for my budget, and then if it is approved, that we would start looking at a lot of those issues. We believe that there are some laws governing about how much storage and everything, so I don't know about an overall policy, though.
So without knowing that, what did you ask for the budget on that?
A lot. We actually did get a quote from our security company, and I want to say they were upwards of like 60 grand. But that included cameras for the entire system, license plate readers, fire system upgrade to a commercial system, which we may not require. So I estimated anywhere on the low end of 20 to high end of 65.
Okay.
And one
Go ahead.
final question. You said you have 0 for the vet clinic. Are we contracting with Dr. Sally, or is she no longer working for us?
I'm really appreciative of Dr. Sally. She was actually supposed to stop at the end of May. She has continued to stay on. For the vet, if I can go into the medical clinic.
Sorry.
No, you're good. they assist us with medical care on animals, surgeries, and we do public services. We do vaccination clinics. We do the community cat program. Dr. Sally is still contracted with us. We do not have an RVT, so we actually allocated, we're trying to allocate a couple extra help to assist her for that loss of the RVT. We do have a big carryover fund just because of the vacant positions and some grant monies that we got from the previous fiscal year. The salaries would still look to increase. We increased greatly our professional services for contract vets. I actually have reached out before I left with all of the local vets to get an idea if they can help us and in what ways could they, whether it's more community cats or surgeries for our facility and also any medical care. We do have some maintenance that needs to be done on a lot of our equipment. They're aging, they're supposed to get regular maintenance, and we just haven't had in previous years the funding. We have it now, so we're looking to do that. And an increase in supplies. Some of the grant monies allows us to get new instruments and all that kind of stuff. And so we're still looking for a contract vet. We didn't get any hits on our RFP, and we really have had no applicants. We've had some applicants for the veterinarian position, but they've been unqualified. I don't think they've had licenses in California or weren't. We've had some people reach out who were soon-to-be graduates, but that's more difficult. You typically have some type of mentorship. So you have another veterinarian watching over during surgeries and helping you.
Any questions? Yes. Any questions? Oh, yes.
It's not a question, but I wanted to make sure the board is aware, since it has been brought up, that in September we are planning for an animal control truck box, $45,000, pet cages, ultralight model, $15,000, and a fire alarm and security system for $65,000. That's all in the works for September.
Okay, great. Do we have anything from the public? Okay, bring it back.
Just a final comment, if I may. I know that we're lucky that Dr. Sally is still here, but I do not know how many more months we have. I'd really like to continue this conversation on figuring out what needs to be done, because obviously something needs to change in order for us to access somebody who's going to take interest and have the qualifications. You know exactly what's going on in the city of Clear Lake. It's what's happening in your area as well, the amount of animals. I mean, right now, just on your thing, it says you have capacity for 45 dogs. I know you have more than 50 dogs. So you're dealing with an overabundant supply of animals to deal with, and we're lucky that we have somebody who can help us in those circumstances. I'd like to make sure that we are doing everything from our board's perspective. I know you are, but I'd love to continue the conversation further than just here.
Yeah, happily.
And with that, I move to approve 2703 and 2711.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay, motion passes. We're going to stop for today. Really good timing. We got to just about 5 o'clock. And tomorrow we will continue with social services and get through the rest of the budget units. And we're glad you had a safe, wonderful, memorable trip.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Got rained on, a lot of lightning, thunderstorms, a lot of bears. It was awesome.
Good, great. All right, so we are adjourned for today.